So let's go ahead and take this from the top. Agile leadership. Leadership has never been about command and control. However, you see a lot of it. It's really in what it's really about is enabling our people to go ahead and do great work. Unfortunately, management schools, and I can tell you that I'm a PMP, so I kind of been there, done that. One of the things that I've noticed is they never talk. I see very few areas where they talk about leading people rather than managing it. And it's amazing to go ahead and see the lack of understanding with leadership. I actually did a short engagement with a large bank. And I was brought in as senior Agile coach, and I was basically working with two teams that they were bringing into an Agile train. And what was interesting was they were coming up very nicely. I even came up with some great ideas for how to coach more remotely, more effectively in a remote station, but I'll save that for some other presentation. But the thing was, we had a retrospective, and in the retrospective, we talked about, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, and then, okay, let's talk about it as a team. What as a team can we fix, and what can we not? And I remember bringing up one where they were having a problem with the QA environment, the testing that was going on there. And I says, well, I'm going to need to report this as an impediment. And what shocked me was a number of the team members saying, you can't do that. And I says, why? He says, we're not going to rat out a team. And I said, what do you mean rat out a team? And he says, we're not going to rat them out. And I thought about it, and I says, listen, let me ask questions here. Okay, I've come to know you guys. Okay, you're very knowledgeable, and okay, you're very, very diligent about what you do. Now, the question that I have for you is the team you're talking about, the team that you're worried about, just as knowledgeable and as diligent as you? And the answer came back was, yeah, they are. And I said, so what we have is we have an impediment, but it's not a team impediment. It's a management impediment. It's an impediment of the environment. So what I plan to do is raise this up to management as an environment, as an environmental impediment, very simply because, okay, your teams are knowledgeable, they know how to do the work, but the environment's hindering their success. And I actually shared this with the director of the division that was involved with this. And I was surprised by, I was happy about his reaction to it, very simply because when I relayed the story, he learned something about Agile leadership and the fact that he now knows that what management needs to really focus on is the environments and the impediments caused by the environment and solving it. So it was definitely a leap for him, and it was also a rare opportunity to go ahead and discover that within a retrospective. So with that in mind, one of the things I want to go ahead and go to is the Agile Manifesto. We see this a lot. And I remember one time when I was conducting a briefing with senior management, because this is common. You want to go ahead and make sure that everybody's on board with it. But anyway, I was doing a briefing. I brought this slide up. And what really kind of annoyed me was a senior management said, well, this is really great. However, this slide is more applicable to Scrum teams and operations. than leadership. Well, I talked a bit about that and everything, but I'm not going to go into it. But one of the things that it did to me was it basically put me on a mission. And that mission was to go ahead and find a way to show how these values apply to leadership. And I finally found it 3 months ago in the appendix of a book called Doing Agile Right, Transformation Without Chaos. And so what I want to do is look at each value from a leadership perspective moving forward, using the Agile Manifesto as the guide. So moving on, the first one, individuals and interactions over process and tools. Again, one of the nice things I like to emphasize here is that it's never instead, it's over. It doesn't mean that we throw the baby out with the bathwater, because they're equally important. But from a leadership perspective, okay, the leadership's responsibility here is to set a clear ambition of what and why and the metrics for success. But they need to leave the how to the team. We need to empower the teams and believe that the answer lies not with us, but with them. So just to give you an example of why that's so true, again, a situation where I was a naval aviator, and when I went to my first squadron, I was being assigned as an assistant branch officer. Now, as far as the aircraft I flew, I knew all the systems, I knew all the emergency procedures. But when I went to the avionics branch, okay, if they lifted up the hood and asked me to look at the inertial navigation system and point it out, I don't think I could. I also know that they were trained. Navy's good about schools, and there's also on-the-job learning. So the question to me, okay, as an ensign at the time, was, assistant branch officer, what is my job? And it came to me at that point, I can't show them how, I can't teach them. So what is my job? My job is to go ahead and enable them to succeed. In looking at that, one of the things that I realized is a lot of times the problems that came up had nothing to do with the knowledge or the expertise of the team. It had to do with the environment, whether they didn't get something from supply or whatever. But that, to me, was the epiphany that occurred back in the 80s. And I just carried it forward with me ever since. As a matter of fact, that was one of the major turning points that when Agile came about, I dove right in.